I call to order this regular meeting of the Anthony Wayne Board of Education. It is Monday, October 9th at 6 o'clock. Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Here.
Mrs. Brent?
Here.
Mrs. Gwynn? Here. Mr. Lutz?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
All right, would you rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item on our agenda is to approve the meetings from our September 11th board meeting. If there are no questions, I need a motion to approve those.
I'll move to approve.
Kyle, and a second, please.
I'll second.
Troy. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right. And now treasurer's report and financial information. Carrie?
Thank you. First item on the agenda is a little different this month. I'm starting with an update. Couple things. One of the new things that came out, one of the many new things that came out of House Bill 33, which is the biennium budget for fiscal year 24 and 25, is to share in a public meeting how we are spending our student wellness and success funds. We've received these funds for several years. If you recall, they used to be under a Fund 467, and they were a state grant. 2 years ago, well, I should say in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, they were moved into the new state formula for the new budget. So now they're part of the general fund operating budget. They have their own revenue code that they are tracked separately. However, I now have to share how we're spending these. So there's not a whole lot other than we'll make sure that we follow the new law. Also, these have to be posted on our website, so you will see those links somewhere for that as well. For this fiscal year, we're getting $207,695.83 in student wellness and success funds. We don't get that all at once. We get that over 24 pays along with the state foundation that we receive twice a month. We're spending $100,000, and there is some guidance on how we spend it. Just to refresh your memory on that, it's for innovative and effective ways to provide whole child support, including mental, behavioral health care, and safety services. And one of the other things that you have to do is partner with a local community. So if you remember back in the day, we used to partner with Awake for this. So currently we are partnering with the Village of White House, and they provide us with 2 school resource officers that are located at our high school. We use that for that, but we also use them as that liaison piece for our community and safety. We also use $70,000 of that, and we charge that off for our psychologist. We added a new one, I believe it was 2 years ago. And we were able to start using those funds towards that. And then last year, we added a social worker. And we are able to charge $37,695.83 off for that salary. So just the last few years, this is a formula. I was looking at it today thinking it would be something short and simple and I could share the formula, but it's basically one of those where it's like 1SE sub E and then all these other numbers. But basically, it is a formula within the new funding, and the new funding for this fiscal year will not be implemented until October 1st, just based on when they could make all the changes. So I could not tie out the number, but based on what we're getting this year, that's what's on record. And then last year, we only received $200,479.75, but in fiscal year 21-22, we received $244,278.68. So it may or may not increase when the budget numbers finally come out with the first pay in October, but this is what we know as of today, so that is our spending plan for our student wellness and success funds. Is there any questions?
If we received more, that would just go probably toward the social worker then?
Yes, yes. That would be correct.
Okay.
The next item I had, I wanted to share just a couple bills that are moving through the House quick. Whoops, wrong document. And so House Bill 187, this is a very fast-moving bill. It's actually scheduled to be heard at the House at 2 o'clock this Wednesday, so they're seeking a lot of input and contact your legislature on this, but basically they're saying that it's going to be a 3-year average for reevaluating property values based equally on the past 3 years, rather than just the look back of 3 years with the focus on the last year. So, also with that, they're tying in, and from this is where, like, we see the triennial update in the revaluation years, where we do see a little bit of spike in revenue on our real estate. But they're also tying in Senate Bill 153, which is lowering the 20 mil floor, and they feel that this would immediately affect the small rural districts. So obviously, it's not something that would necessarily affect us, but basically, just so you know, when you're hearing these things and seeing it come through your OASBO or OSBA or BASA, that you kind of understand where we're at. But we sit at, our effective millage towards the floor is 22.23 mils. So, and there's actually 4 more digits that go behind it, but just simplifying that number, which is basically our general fund operating effective millage and minus our emergency levy. So we have the emergency levy that goes back to 2008, when initially passed, 3?
Maybe it was 8. Yeah.
I know
those
it
curly
renewed every
numbers,
year for
yeah.
5 years, and then they switched it to 10, so,
It might be 8, but anyways.
yeah, sorry, that slips me. I get so many numbers going, but, so it is, we're 22.23, so it's not something that really could have an impact us, and, you know, some people will feel that this may or may not be fair. You know, the person that buys a $150,000 house and the person that buys a $350,000 house, and they're gonna take the average between those two. The 350 is gonna think they're getting a good deal, and the 150 is going to. So I can see that being some issues. But the other bill that's being proposed as part of this tax relief is House Bill 263, and this is, it's to the 70 years and older. If you earn less than $70,000 a year and you've owned your home for 10 years, you will have your tax frozen, so you will not pay taxes. So it's just another thing. It's a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul, because as soon as, you know,
Those
Mr.
go
Smith
up.
doesn't pay his tax because he's 70,
The rest of us have to.
the
pick it up.
younger ones, yeah, that live next door. So just a couple things, but just so you have a little bit of input on that.
And I think it's important to point out that, so in that conversation, right, if that individual is not paying those taxes towards the already approved levies that are out there, whether it be ours or the libraries or what have you, and, you know, that means that the rest of us will have to pick up that amount
Yep.
to pay those
Equal to dollars.
taxes.
Yes.
So that could be seen as a tax increase that none
Right.
of us voted on, right? You know, and how that would work. You know, with any of these too, I'll mention is that we as all as taxpayers that pay our taxes and own a home, we're happy to hear this, right? But the concern becomes for us as a school district or a municipality or, you know, those types of things is what happens to that funding that we were getting or potentially we're going to get. So that's where we're having this discussion about, you know, just making you aware, but also understand that, while us as individuals may pay a little bit less, or some individuals may pay less, there's some others that may pay more as a result of all this. And then if there's a loss in income for some of those levies, because some are fixed dollar amounts, levies, versus millage, where the millage, yeah, so it, there's a lot of variation in all of this, and just understand that if it does get approved, we'll try to figure out exactly what that's going to look like as far as overall for the district, and then try to communicate that out with our community as best we can once we have all the details of the legislation. So, sorry.
No, that's fine, that's exactly correct, so. And then the last thing I just want to share is that I did receive an email last Friday that the levy estimator is now activated on Aries on the Auditor Estates webpage, or County Auditor. And I'm very pleased with it. It's super user-friendly. You would just go to Aries. You can search under parcel number, owner name, address. It's on the left-hand side. There's several different options. You click on Levy Estimator, and it comes right up. And on the front page, it will show you the increase in cost of both levies. So you don't have to click to the second page to see that increase. So just wanted to share that that's out there.
And I think that helps too, because one of the questions that we're receiving is, when people think about this and they see the numbers associated per $100,000 of home value, the one item that we try to stress is it's assessed home value, which is different than what you may be able to sell your home for.
Right.
It's based on what the county auditor is assessing the value of it for tax purposes. And so that's significantly less than what you may be able to sell your house for. So the levy estimator takes that into account and can show you those numbers versus you trying to figure out at home where you might not have the accurate number to reflect that actual amount. Because typically, obviously, your assessed value typically is less than what you could sell your home for. So.
The assessed value is 35% of the market value of your home. So if your home's worth, if your home has a market value of $100,000, your taxes are based on $35,000. So any other questions on the update?
Thank you.
Moving on, under item B is to approve the monthly financials for September. It's hard to believe we're at September. September's over already.
Yeah.
So item C is to approve the donations. We are always very appreciative of the donations we receive in the district. And then under item D is to approve ProMedica Employer Services as our workers' comp third-party administrator. This is something that David Kodorovic used to serve for the district, and he has since retired. And before he did that, we switched the last year when he was still working, but working through ProMedica. And since he has retired, we have elected to stay with them. And the change has been seamless. We're very pleased with them. So that is all I have for this evening.
All right. Any questions or comments for Carrie on the treasurer's report? If not, I need a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Jeff. And a second, please?
I'll second.
Kyle. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you, Carrie. Superintendent's educational reports and recommendations. Jim?
Thank you. First item on the my report is the AWS exempt district status. I received a letter last week in regards to, we'll have exempt status for the next 3 years. Basically, let me read through this real quickly and then tell you a little bit about what that really means. And this is from the Ohio Department of Education. Congratulations, the Ohio Department of Education is pleased to inform you that your district has met the exempt district criteria outlined in Ohio Revised Code 3302.151. As a result, your district is entitled to exempt district status for 3 school years. State Board of Education, the Ohio Department of Education staff appreciate your leadership and your staff's dedication, which produces this great success. ODE hopes that additional flexibility provided under this exemption allows your district to continue your success in an atmosphere of increased autonomy. The exempt district criteria became effective on March 16, 2017. According to the Ohio Revised Code, the 3-year exemption period must start with the school year in which the qualified report card is issued. Because your school district's 2022-23 report card met the requirements outlined in Ohio Revised Code, the 2023-24 school year is the first year of your 3-year exempt district status. And then it talks about what they attached to the email. And basically, they sent me the qualification, or what does it really mean, okay? And also, ultimately, this allows flexibility in our teacher qualifications for the third grade reading guarantee. It allows us to have some flexibility in how resident educator program, which is really their mentoring program that they have to go through, which just changed, so I'll be interested to see what that really means. They actually made it a little bit less stringent. Provisions on minimum or maximum class sizes. Any provisions requiring teachers to be licensed specifically in grade levels in which they are teaching unless federal law mandates otherwise. So that's really, in essence, what it would allow us to do. We haven't had to seek that flexibility. Sometimes you may need to do so, but we haven't had to seek that in order to do what we've done, or do we see a real need at this point to do that, to move forward? So, but I do appreciate the fact that they, for years, when I first became superintendent, for many years after that, we fought for, if we're doing so well, give us some breaks. This is all we could get, though, at the time. Hopefully it will grow, and from some of the mandates that are required by the states, moving forward. But that's where we're at with that information that they sent to us. Next, I'm going to have Mr. Connor speak in regards to our local report card results from this past school year.
Thank you. Is that too loud? I don't want to blow anybody out of here with my teacher voice. If we have any Packer or Raiders fans in here, I'll try to get us out of here by kickoff. So just sit tight. No. Like to thank the board for giving me a couple minutes to share our outstanding results based on this year's report card. I think it truly is shows the dedication of our staff, our administrators, and everybody in this room, parents and students alike. I just want to go over kind of briefly the components of the grade card, the report card, and how we kind of arrive at where we're at. For the 2022-23 school year, Anthony Wayne received, as a district, 4.5 out of 5 stars. That rating is made up of 5 components. One thing that I want to let everybody know is that all of this information is available on the Ohio Department of Education website. I've got the address above. You can go in, you can search for not only the district report card, but the individual building report cards as well. So like I said, for both the district and for each school building, the report card's made up of 5 components: achievement, progress, early literacy, graduation, and gap closing. There's another measure on the report card called the college, career, workforce, and military readiness component, but that is a report only. That does not feed into the actual rating. So out of the 5 components, they're weighted a little bit differently. The main emphasis is placed on achievement and growth. So you can kind of see the percentages there. Now, if you were to dig into your building report cards, the percentages change slightly because obviously the high school, for example, wouldn't have an early literacy component, right? or the primary buildings wouldn't have a graduation rate. So for those building-specific report cards, these weights are adjusted slightly, and all of those calculations can be found on the ODE website as well. So just a little breakdown for our district scale. You can see that the state breaks it down by half stars, so to speak, for the overall building or district rating, excuse me. And so we fall into that 4.5 star category, which is defined by the state as exceeding state standards, okay? And it breaks it down from there. The actual components are only rated on whole numbers, so when we start talking about achievement and some of the other components, they're only 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's no half ratings. So the achievement component really looks at how well did our students do on their state tests from that school year. Throughout the school year, students in the district and all across the state take state tests in grades 3 through 8 in language arts and math, 5th and 8th grade science, and then our end of course exams at the high school, which are ELA 2, Algebra 1, Geometry, Biology, American History, and American Government. The achievement component is based on what the state calls the performance index. So when a student takes a test and we get the score back, they're broken down into performance levels or achievement levels. You can see up there, there's advanced plus, advanced, accomplished, proficient, basic, and limited. Now the advanced plus achievement level is kind of interesting. Those are students who are grade level accelerated in a subject. So for instance, we have 4th grade students who take 5th grade math. When they take that test and they score advanced, they're actually in the advanced plus category. So last year, we had almost 6,700 tests taken across the district, across those areas that I mentioned previously. So what the state does is after testing is over, they look at every district in the state and they take the top 2% and they create a max score out of those top 2%. The max PI score that you could achieve was 108.8. So that's kind of the top tier. Our performance index was a 102.2. So as you can see, they take the percentage of students at each achievement level, multiply that by a metric to give you a points received, and then it's added up to create your performance index. Couple achievement highlights, 62.5% of all of our scores across the entire district were in the top 3 performance levels. We decreased our scores in the bottom 2 performance levels by 1.4%, and our overall PI increase year to year from 22 to 23 went up 2.7%. 36.6% of all the tests taken, again, that's out of those 6,700, were either advanced plus or advanced.
That's significant.
Couple of areas of focus. So when we look at any type of testing data, what we really want to take away from there are not only the successes, but the areas for focus or areas of improvement. So we will utilize that data to continue to use any types of state projections to create goals for teachers and students, to identify areas of strength and weakness for our students, and our overall programming. And the state this year released something that actually we think is going to be pretty good. It's kind of an authoring system where teachers can go in using state standards and released test items to create their own benchmark tests that students can take, which again, give them some really good data on where students are with the skills that we're teaching at those grade levels. The next component is the progress component. And progress, or sometimes people refer to it as value added, is looking at students' testing history and where they fall across the whole state of Ohio, and looking at whether or not, as they continue to test moving up the system, they kind of grow or meet their projected performance levels with similar students across the state. And in progress, we earned a 3 out of 5 stars. Some of the highlights for progress is when we talk progress and value added, one of the goals is to really meet that growth target. So we want each student to demonstrate that year's worth of growth. And as a district, by getting 3 out of 5 stars, we met that for the state this year. And our progress rating this year increased 2 stars from the previous year. And ironically enough, some of this data is actually captured from the previous school year, about 33% of it. So next year, we'll carry those great achievement scores into our progress rating, which I think will give that even more of a boost. Areas of focus, when we talk about value added or progress, we really look at ensuring that what we're doing in the classroom on a daily basis aligns to our state content standards, as well as making sure that what we're doing has a high level of rigor for our students. Another thing that we're talking about a lot this year specifically is increasing levels of student engagement, really getting them engaged in the content that we're teaching them. And then again, we can use that data and performance data that sets goals for students to really hone in on certain students and make sure that as we're assessing them through the school year and as we're working with them, that they're hitting those levels. Our next component is our graduation rate. Now, graduation rate is always a year in the rear, right? So this is actually based on the graduates from 2022. So what the state does is they look at your 4-year graduation rate. That is how many students graduate in 4 years, and then a 5-year rate. So you may have a handful of students that don't make it at the end of their 4 years, but they pick up a couple credits over the summer, or they pass that test, or whatever they need to do, and then they combine those into what's called the weighted graduation rate. So for our 2022 graduation cohort, we were at a 98% graduation rate. Now, one of the things that I would point out, which I think might surprise some people, is that right around 20%, just shy of 20% of the students in that cohort didn't attend Anthony Wayne High School for all 4 years. So we have a lot of students that move in at various levels, freshman, sophomore, junior, even senior year, that factor into that, and we didn't have them for all 4 years. So again, we maintain a graduation rate that exceeds both state and similar district averages. You know, again, we do, I think more than maybe some people would realize, we have a lot of students move in during their high school years, and some of them may come to us behind on what they need to do to graduate. Some areas of focus, again, if you've paid attention to the new graduation requirements of courses, competency and readiness, you know, years ago you just got your credits and you graduated. Now there's a few more layers to that, so we really focus in on tracking our students right away. Even after that first semester of freshman year, we want to know where they're at. Are they progressing with the things that they need to accomplish to graduate? We identify students as being at risk to graduate early in their high school career, and we even dip down a little bit into the junior high to try to identify some of those kids who are struggling. And then again, when transfer students come in, we have to know where they're at and stay on top of them, and if they need to pick some things up, we've got to put them in the right situation to do that. So another component of the grade card is called gap closing. So what gap closing looks at are subgroups within our student demographic, right? So what this graph depicts is, if you think about that performance index that I mentioned in the achievement section, what gap closing looks at are how are our subgroups performing within our entire student group. So, for instance, up there, some of the subgroups that are represented in Anthony Wayne and across the state are, number one, all of your students, but your Hispanic population, your economically disadvantaged population, your English language learners, students with disabilities. So if we have more than 15 students in a particular subgroup, we get, the state tracks that data for us. So on this particular graphic, the red dot signifies the state goal, okay? And that state goal was part of Ohio's ESSA plan that they submitted to the federal government when the Every Student Succeeds Act became law. And so that is where our subgroups should all score. And as you can see in both English language arts and math, we exceed those goals. Again, all of our subgroups in both English language arts and math are exceeding those goals as outlined by the state. And our high levels of achievement really help us in that gap closing area. Some areas of focus for our gap closing, there is a progress component that goes into gap closing, again, that value added. So we're working very hard to improve that overall progress component, which will further address that gap closing component as well. And then I think we do a really good job of working with our students who need some extra help in terms of interventions and assistance when we note that they've got some skill deficiencies. And then finally is the early literacy component. And this really measures how well we're doing with our young readers in grades K through 3. So if you've had a student go through the primary buildings recently, you know that we do STAR testing, and the goal there is to make sure that students are on track with their peers in terms of progressing as emerging, young and emerging readers, okay? So the 3 areas that go into this early literacy component are overall proficiency on the 3rd grade ELA test, and you can see we scored last year at a 91.7%, where our 3rd grade students fell. There's also the promotion to 4th grade based on the 3rd grade reading guarantee, and we had 100%, of our students promoted to the 4th grade based on the students either passing the 3rd grade ELA test or another comparable test as approved by the state. And then the third area within that early literacy component is as we screen our students, if we find that a student is not on track with their peers, our goal is to intervene with them and work with them and get them caught up so they are on track with their peers. And so this early literacy component measures all 3 of those. And again, there we were a 4 out of 5 on the early literacy component. So all in all, I think our administrators, our staff have done a wonderful job. We're seeing really good results. We showed improvement in 2023 over 2022, and we continue to review all of our student data to try to make those programming changes and adaptations to further raise the achievement of all of our students. A couple of early literacy areas of focus. Several years ago, we implemented a structured literacy program, which we think is paying huge dividends for our emerging readers and young readers. We continue with our MTSS programming, which is a multi-tiered system of support, so that if we find that students are struggling academically or behaviorally or with attendance, our teams come together and put plans in place to help them. We have fully implemented and continue to implement Ohio's dyslexia legislation requirements. And so that constitutes screening and intervention and specific programming with those students. And this year, one of the things that we'll work on to further bolster our reading instruction is to implement programming changes when and where appropriate to meet the new state requirements based on the science of reading. That's it. Questions?
It's fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really nice.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd mentioned too, when we talk about the interventions, we went to a new intervention system with using MTSS and also then with our instructional coaches and our tutors. And I think part of what we're seeing as far as, especially with some of our struggling students, is that extra help has helped them along the way to see gains, significant gains. And I think that's important to point out. But, when we look at the overall data, I think it looks very good. I get a little bit more fixated on the performance index because of the fact that it just shows every single test and how that test was, the performance on that individual test. And so when we start looking at those numbers and we start looking at whether it be the district or the individual buildings, and that's why, I'm excited about those numbers, because you look at White House Primary, there's only 4 other schools, primary schools in the state that scored a higher performance index than they did. We talk about, Jim talked about setting that average for the performance index. They were higher than that average, or that top score. And then you start going down the different buildings and seeing the performances, top 1%, top 3%, or you go into 4%, and then we, just keep going down of just excellent performance by our students. Testament to our parents, our students, our staff, our administrators, and I would say also all of our employees, because we strive to tell them that everything we do from the time we pick up a student to the time we take them home is important, whether it's having a clean building, whether it's providing the food for them at lunch or breakfast, time on the playground and recess and all those types of things. It all plays into the experience they have during the school day and, the success that they can demonstrate through these assessments, but more importantly, the learning that's happening in the classrooms, and even outside of the classrooms for that matter. So just excited about the results for this year, and we just truly want to thank all those involved in that and that made that happen, because I think it's a great testament to our school district. So thank you, Jim, for that presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jim.
Just wanted to mention too, you may have heard of a situation that happened in a school district in Ohio where a student lost their life on a school bus, because of an accident. And so as a response to that, the governor put together a Ohio School Bus Safety Committee. And there's been discussions about a variety of things related to safety on school buses. One of the items that has come up is the potential of requiring school buses, possibly even through legislation, because it's been proposed, to have seat belts on school buses. We could debate the safety of that and whether that makes sense for the school buses or not, and I'm sure this committee will do that and make their recommendation. Legislation may force us to do that as well. Right now, the legislation, I believe, says that we would have to do it within a 5-year period. My concern with all of that is, Tammy, how many buses do we have right now? 39, but probably 50 or, yeah, so for obviously having the, do field trips and other things, you get one breakdown, all of that kind of stuff. And so you start doing the math on the cost to do that, it's going to be expensive. And so we have to realize that if that does come to fruition, as a requirement. But it may be in the best interest of the safety of the kids, depending on, the requirements of what that seatbelt looks like and how it's developed and placed into and retrofitted into school buses to make sure it does keep kids safe while they're traveling on the bus. But you can imagine on a primary school ride, that's going to take some time. You know, that's one of the concerns that's been raised about, would you have to have an aide on every bus in order to then get kids into their seatbelts as they get in on and off the bus and so forth, potentially for our primary school students, or preschool for that matter. So I just wanted to mention that to you, that that's part of the conversation. There is legislation proposed that may address that moving forward. School Calendar Committee met for the first time. We meet again on Wednesday. And primarily what we're looking at is just getting an understanding of what goes into the school calendar. But two, you know, what does the next 2 years look like? And so we're going to go through that process the next few meetings, hopefully to have a recommendation to you in November for the school calendar moving forward. Also, I'm just going to add this item. League of Women Voters invited me to speak tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at Monclova Community Center at the end of the program in regards to the bond issue and the operational issue that's on the ballot. I will speak about the details that are on our website. I have a prepared statement of the facts, and so I will present those as my part. And I know candidates from the school board have been invited, as well as then I think 2 officials from Monclova Township as well. So just wanted to mention that I will be there as well for that event. Okay, item B in my report is overnight field trips. There are 3 listed there, 2 for basketball and 1 for the FFA program. Item C are educational agreements for services for, it's just one agreement for a specific student. So unless you have questions, I would ask that you approve A through C in one motion.
I have a question on the school bus. Is there
Yes.
timing on that safety potential change?
Yeah, right now, in the legislation, they're talking about a 5-year period that you'd have to, we would have that grace period to get school buses equipped with these retrofitted safety harnesses. I'll call it a harness with seatbelt, but I've not heard any description of what that would look like. That would give us time. Obviously, we could use permanent improvement money to do that work, but it's just going to take that money away from something else too. But,
Right.
that's how we always adjust, right, when we have a new requirement that we have to fulfill. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just trying to provide the reality of where we're at moving forward with the potential of that cost increase.
And I suppose it's not a foregone conclusion that it'll come either, right?
Yeah, my little bit that I heard about the committee was not put together to mandate seatbelts. We had this issue, let's see if there's something that we can do to help improve safety on school buses. As the governor has said publicly, school buses are one of the safest transportation mechanisms in the United States because of, just think about the volume of students that are on buses every day and the safety that's there for them. So we'll see what comes from the recommendations and then what maybe the legislature may do or the governor may do moving forward. I just know that legislation was proposed I believe by the legislator of that area where that accident did happen.
Any other questions for Jim on that?
I move to approve.
All right. Kyle, and a second, please.
I'll second.
Troy. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes?
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that, Jim. And now your personnel recommendations.
Thank you. Resignations and retirements. As you see, we are starting to receive retirements and so forth for next school year. It's that time of year where, they'll start to notify us as they plan for their retirement. Item B, in employment, you'll see that we're hiring Monica Gregory, who I believe is here tonight. She just waved at you, as Secretary 1 at the junior high. Item C, substitute employees as listed. there. We always appreciate those who have volunteered to be a substitute, but they are working as true paid substitutes, so we appreciate that. Item D are volunteers as listed. We always appreciate those who are willing to do that to help support the programs in the buildings and outside of the buildings through field trips and so forth. Item E are limited supplemental contracts as listed, as we're getting into, continuing to fill positions as a new winter sports cycle comes about, as well as we have camp coming up, so there's some approvals there for that as well. Item F are supplemental contracts, and then you see the outdoor education that's recommended by Mr. Herman, and a science department chair position. Item G, contract amendments that are listed there. So I would ask that you approve A through G in one motion unless you have questions.
Any questions? Go ahead. I thought, okay. All right, I need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Okay. Jana, and a second.
I'll second.
Jeff. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes.
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Jim, for that. At this point, it's our time for our public to weigh in on a few things. We've only got 2 speakers tonight, but I mentioned this last time, and I'll say it again. I ask that you not mention any candidacy, or we probably should stay away from the levies as well, or discuss any other candidate during your time. First one on the list is Shelley McKnight.
I will be very brief because I do want to watch the football game later. This is short and simple. I simply want to commend the superintendent and whatever police force was involved in the incident Friday night. I was there. I know Mike was there. I saw Mr. Baden there. We did not see anything. It happened after I was there. I believe it was handled very efficiently, very effectively. I think that whoever the child was, or children, who obviously heard, if you see something, say something, took that to heart, they should be rewarded in some way. I've taught, I've had active drill things that are going on in school where I taught, so it is a very dangerous situation that was very efficiently averted, so thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Shelley. And next is Deb Jacoby.
I don't like to talk in front of a big group. Debbie Jacoby, I live in White House, Ohio, and I just have been coming to several meetings lately and just hearing nothing but the negative. Negative, negative, negative. And I'm really proud of Anthony Wayne. And this is our community, our school, and our kids' future. I've been a community member for 29 years. We moved to Anthony Wayne because of the excellent rating of the school district. My husband graduated from Anthony Wayne in 1970. He's really old. And my daughters in 2011 and 2013. And I've been employed with Anthony Wayne for 22 years as a paraprofessional. In the past 29 years, I've gotten to know and work for 3 superintendents and a variety of school board members. Have I agreed with all of the decisions that have been made over the years? No. But then again, it's not all about me. Decisions aren't solely made to please people. They need to be legal and follow the law. So why are we not focused on the positive things going on here at Anthony Wayne? At this time, we need to unite and tout the positive of our district to make sure that we can continue the excellent school rating that we have. Our current school board members, children have graduated from Anthony Wayne. They are here because they're passionate about the future success of Anthony Wayne's school district and the students. We need to come together and have open-minded discussions. In my line of work, behavior is communication. We need not be bullied into totally agreeing with everyone. Rather, we need to find our common ground, the children, and go from here. A discussion is where we try to find the common ground. An argument is where someone wants to be right and then someone is wrong. This isn't about right or wrong, because my right might be your wrong, or your right might be wrong to me. So there's some things I'm passionate about, and no matter what you say, you're not going to change my mind. And I'm sure many of you are like that too. But at the point, we have to have discussions so that we can see and respect the other person's point of view. We got to agree to disagree, but I'm sure we can find common ground. It's okay for you to believe what you believe, but it's not okay for you to demand that I believe the same way. So through debate, we need to come to understand other positions and points of view, bring ideas and solutions that have not already been discussed. Let's show our kids that we can lead by example, and we can agree to disagree. I'm proud of our school, I'm proud to be a community member, and proud to be a staff member of Anthony Wayne. And I just would like to see more positive talk in our district than dwelling on things that need to be fixed. Maybe there are things that need to be fixed, but let's do it in a productive manner and not tear down people, each other, and what's already great about our district.
Thank you, Deb.
My apologies to the two speakers. I could not get this to show up, the timer on the screen, so my apologies to you for that.
But you both were well within your time frame. What's that, Shelley? Yeah, you can't talk twice, that's right. That's about the same thing. Anyways, at this point, I need a motion to adjourn our meeting. Kyle and Jana. And Carrie, would you please call roll?
Mr. Baden?
Yes.
Mrs. Brent?
Yes?
Mrs. Gwynn?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Thank you. Our next meeting is in November. November 9th, yes.
Thank you.